There's a reason why holding on is killing you. Like, we think that holding on is helping us, and the reality is that it's hurting us. It's not allowing us to move into what's real, into what we deserve, into what we need, because we become so fixated with thinking that if we hold on longer, that if we're persistent, or if we show up more, if we do more of what was already not valued, that eventually they're going to value it. Unfortunately, too many of us continue to stay in things just because we've invested time into it, because we've made a mistake and we think that I've done this for so many years that I have to keep pressing in. And there's something called the sunken cost fallacy, which I've mentioned in other videos and mentioned other things, but it's so important to understand that a lot of people think this fallacy is teaching us that a lot of people believe that because they've invested time into a situation, even though it's failing and burning out and terrible, that they have to consistently pour into it, that they have to press harder, they have to continue, because again, you've invested all this time. So you think that just because you've invested all this time in it, that you can't just walk away or run away. But I want you to think about it this way, right? And that's our first thing there, right? Recognizing when to let go. I want you to think about it this way. If you continue to press more, are you going to lose more, or are you going to gain anything? Like, is it you investing more time in something that's clearly shown you that it's not going to work, doesn't desire you, that doesn't want you around? Is it ever going to improve? And we're sitting here, we think that, well, okay, if I wait till next year, if I keep pushing on, if I do the next thing, that if I keep investing more time into this hole, that eventually they're going to see my worth and my value. The truth is that they won't, because they didn't value it before. You don't need to show more of you for them to see what they already saw and value it. They know what you are. They've seen who you are. The question isn't, do they value you? The question is, do you value you? Like, do you wake up and say, okay, I'm done pouring into this because it's not growing me. I'm miserable. I'm hurt. I'm not where I want to be. And the reality is that we shouldn't continue to pour into places or people that aren't giving us anything back. And I don't mean, again, no relationship should ever be about what you're getting, but there should be a level of reciprocity. There should be a level of you pouring into somebody that pours back into you, because what happens is when you pour and they don't pour back, you end up empty and hurt. So the question there, just because you spent so much time making a mistake doesn't mean you have to marry the mistake. Just because you've invested so much time in there doesn't mean you have to continue to stay in that thing. You have to, at some point, sit back and realize, is this worth me pursuing? And the time that I've invested, the effort that I made, is this actually something that I'm going to sit here and say, you know what, it was worth it? Or am I just married to an idea or a story that I've told myself that makes me remain there? It makes me stay in this thing because I sell it to me. I put it on a pedestal. I've created this, and I refuse to let go and move away from it. I refuse to step back and actually say, okay, well, the time I invested here was beautiful and it was there, but it's now gone. We need to be able to understand that sometimes you need to cut your losses and walk away. Sometimes you need to take it for face value, take it for what it is, and move away from this thing, because if not, you'll continue to remain in what's hurting you. You'll allow what's hurting you to be your home, and that's just not a way to live. Just because you spend so much time doing it doesn't mean you have to continue. Just because you spend so much time in the relationship doesn't mean you have to continue. Just because you spend so much time making mistakes or failing or falling short doesn't mean you have to continue. Understanding that just because you've invested time in something doesn't mean that thing is worth you investing more. Our next point is identify manipulation. This is a tough one. I think for a lot of people, we allow our wounds to be tools in the hands of those people that desire to manipulate us, right? Because for some people, like people pleasing, right? The desire for approval, because I haven't received approval in certain situations in my life or in certain places in my life. I think that receiving approval from a person, whether romantic partner or just friendship or whatever, I think that is a validation that I need, because we've tied our self-worth to them. We've allowed ourselves to be manipulated because we think that who we are is only gauged and valued to what they say or do. Unfortunately, for a lot of us, we've allowed people to say things and make those the things that we attach to. But ask yourself this question: are the actions matching the words? Like, they can say whatever they want. They can tell you that they love you, that you're amazing, that you're all these are great things. But what are they actually doing? Like, are their actions genuinely, authentically showing the words that they're saying, or they're doing something completely the opposite of that? At that point, that's manipulation. Or they're telling you, oh, I want this with you, I desire you this in my life, I desire you in this world, but then they do nothing for that to be true. They make no effort to actually try and engage with you or grow with you or build with you. That's manipulation. You need to understand that when people say things and do nothing, They are desiring to get an emotion out of you without giving you a commitment. They're not doing anything that's genuinely connecting to you. They're choosing to tell you things because they know that it's easy to buy you by love bombing you, by creating a connection with you that's only through words and not through actions. They're manipulating you. And unfortunately, we aren't able to identify manipulation because we've equated validation with desire. We've created that people treat us some type of way because they want us. And unfortunately, that's not the case. Unfortunately, we continue to fall into these ruts of just letting people say things to us and us selling ourselves a story of what it could be, and then not actually following through. They're not fulfilling the things that they're saying. So I need you to ask yourself this question: am I being manipulated? Like, am I hearing words? Are they telling me things, but are they doing nothing about it? Are they changing? Are they making efforts? Are they actually inviting me to things? Or are they making me feel welcomed or loved? Or is it just when I speak up or say something about it that they say a word about it? You have to realize that that is manipulation. Them not doing the action, but saying the word. They can tell you they love you, and I'm sure you are amazing. But do they actually do anything to prove it? Like, words are one thing, but allowing yourself to actually be invested in and loved fully will only come from a person that genuinely desires that, not a person that's just going to say these things. And again, it's tied to how we view ourselves. So our self-worth tends to be tied to the validation and how they see it. So moving on to that next point, valuing yourself. The reality is that we don't value ourselves. Like, for a lot of us, it's easier to stay in something that requires us to give because we don't have to look inwards. We don't have to actually say, wait, why am I pouring so much out when I don't care about me? Unfortunately, we've been taught that it's easier to value people and to pursue people and to desire people and to be stuck on people than it is to love me. And that's a scary thing, because this is a normal thing in our culture where we just fall into this trap of making other people the center point of everything we do. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's good to love people and to pour into people. And you should desire to give and to care about people. But the problem comes when we make that the center point of everything, when they become the factor of our whole lives, like everything that we pour into, and then we have no actual value for ourselves. So when they don't validate us, we feel bad. We feel like we're worthless because you've been invalidated. You need to be able to learn how important you are and start valuing you, because unfortunately, we'll continue to let people walk over us. We don't know our value. We don't have self-worth. It's easy to let people say whatever they want about us. And I just want you to ask yourself this question: how am I letting people say whatever they want to me, and me not actually standing up to myself? Is it, and what I mean by that, it's like, right, because it might be verbal, right? It literally might be like they're saying something to you, but sometimes it's an action. Sometimes people tell you what they want to tell you by the things that they do or don't do. Am I actually creating boundaries with myself that push people away? And this is scary, right? Because we don't want people to leave us. We've attached our value to their validation, and we think that their presence is validation. And I need you to understand that when you are firm in your boundaries, people will leave you. They'll walk away from you. Why? Because they aren't able to manipulate or control who you are and how you feel. So it's harder for them to stay around. But this is okay. This is good. And again, I don't mean this in a toxic way, which funny enough we'll talk about next. But I don't mean this in a way where you're sitting here and just, attacking people or berating people or anything of that nature. But being firm in you, that you don't allow people to continue to treat you any type of way or act poorly against you or make you feel like you're less than in those manners. When you are firm in that, people will leave. They will leave because they're so used to being able to control you, to manipulate you, to take that value from you and pour it on themselves. So am I stopping people from, or creating boundaries with people that stops them from allowing them to treat me however they want, or make me feel however they want, or say whatever they want? And yes, this, again, romantic relationships are great. Yes, it's important if it's there, but also friendships, like people around me. Are my friends genuinely my friends, or is it something of convenience, or am I just validating something in them by them invalidating me that allows them to feel power or authority over me? When you start saying, no, I'm not going to be okay with people speaking to me however they want, that's when you start creating that friction, those boundaries. Our next point is toxic people in isolation. I think this was tough because isolation is a huge tool that people use to manipulate you. Like, the whole premise of this, and we hear this often, right? And I say this often: if I'm not invited personally, I don't take it personally, but I also won't make it out of my way to try to make you invite me or to include me or to make me part of it, right? Because what happens is that sometimes we give authority to people by desiring so much, that same point, right, that our value is tied to it, but desiring so much to be included or invited, that them not inviting us physically hurts us. Them not including us in things physically hurts us, because toxic people love to create this dichotomy between you and them, that it's easy to use you or to control you by how they treat you. So if you're invited or welcomed, you're gonna feel a spike in endorphins, right? You're gonna feel like, oh, I'm a part of this. The hormones are gonna make you feel good. But when you're not, it creates a separation that uh, makes you feel like you're missing them. And this is actually really common with love bombing. You hear this very often with people who are in relationships that are well, love bombed, because narcissists are very good at giving you spikes in hormones, make you feel like you're loved and invited and included. And then what they do is that they pull that away from you. So when they pull that away from you, you have created this connection, this desire to feel that again. And this is not just romantic relationships, but again, really common in it. But even friendships, they desire to pull that away from you, and they create arguments or fights or distance or completely ignore you, and then come out of nowhere and desire to be connected to you again. Now, again, this is not like people are busy and they're living their lives and those things. Those are all important things to understand, important factors. But this is more focused towards the reality that these people will create isolation or distance or space where you are away from everything else in efforts to control you. And some people do it consciously, which I think is worse, but some people do it subconsciously. They're not aware of the things that they haven't healed in themselves, so they follow trends and patterns that are common to them or that have been done to them. We have to realize that when people create this isolation in us, again, that self-value, if you have value in yourself, if you've created boundaries in yourself, if you love you, that doesn't affect you, right? Because I'm not concerned about you not loving me. I love me. I'm not concerned about you inviting me, because I'm perfectly good with my own presence. Everything else should be an add-on. It shouldn't be the center point of how you feel about yourself or what you do. You have to be able to understand that you aren't valued, or your value isn't found in them. Right? It's not found in other people. It's found in you. And when that happens, you take away that power. Right? They can't manipulate you. Right? In the words they say without the actions, they can't control you by creating isolation in you. And they're just not toxic enough to even seep into you. You've created a barrier that's so firm that they don't have that power over you. And that's when it's okay to create space. And when you identify that in people, it's easy to say, okay, I don't want to be around you. It's okay to let go of those people. It's okay to create space with them, because you don't really need them. It's all right to move away from these people that, whether, again, romantic or platonic or family, whatever they are, whatever they fit into this category, it's okay to walk away from people that desire to control you through manipulation or tactics or anything of that nature. That it's not about loving you, it's about using you. And you need to be able to love you so much that you move away from these people. Now, this is the hardest portion of this, because moving away and actually taking the action and stepping away from people and cutting off connection and all these things is hard. It's not an easy thing to choose. It's not something that you're going to sit there and you're going to say, oh, this is exactly what I want, so I'm just going to do it. No, yes, you might want it, but it's not going to be a simple thing as that. You have to really sit here and plan how you're going to create the space. So creating space between people that you know are bad for you, that are hurting you, that aren't helping you, that aren't helping you grow, relationship that's really poor, that's not actually what's serving you, that you guys don't align in vision, whatever that is, you need to be able to understand how to create that separation. And often, that separation can only come through us, right? Even there are certain situations where I've seen people break up of a relationship, right? So they desire to go away from that. But what the problem is that they continue to stalk the person's Instagram or follow them on social media or connect with them or still text them here, Merry Christmas or Happy New Year, all these, whatever those things are. If you consistently continue to go back, you will consistently continue to be stuck. You cannot go back into something and then expect for it to just be happy, right? It's just not going to work that way, because you are choosing to go back into the cycle. You're choosing to remain connected. You're choosing to stay around. Unfortunately, you have to plan ways to safeguard you. If you have to block and delete and change, do it. If you have to unfollow and block and all these things, do it. But you can't continue to go back to the place that hurt you and wonder why you didn't heal. You can't go back to the thing that consistently made you feel terrible and then wonder why you haven't changed, because you are going back to the thing that you know you have to leave. But unfortunately, for a lot of people, they have made their value so much to it that even when they know, even when they're aware that they're not validated by them, they still choose to look for that. You have to be able to be concrete on what you want and choose it every day until it becomes easy. That's like the hugest life lesson you will ever hear. And that's something for everything, something I'm trying to apply in other areas of my personal life. You have to choose the really hard now so that it can become easier tomorrow. It doesn't become significantly easier, but it becomes a fragment easier. And then each fragment adds up until it's completely easier. But you have to choose to walk away from the place that you're not valued or loved. And if you don't, you'll consistently be stuck in a place that's hurting you. So choosing to let go, that's the hardest thing you'll ever do. But it'll be the best thing for you. It'll be the best thing that will happen to your life because you are able to just trust that you're moving into a new season. You'll be able to do something new. You'll be able to fully be you without the crutches of begging people to choose you or approve you or love you or begging people to do the simple things that they should desire to do. Unfortunately, we'll continue to go around circles, begging people to see us because we don't see us, because we don't value ourselves, because we've given authority to them. You deserve the freedom of being you, but that will never happen if you continue to go back to a place where you're captive. You have to choose to walk away and trust that it's going to work out.